There's an Israeli song that came out in the last couple of years called Besorot Tovot. It's a popular song. Besorot Tovot means good news. Pop song by the Israeli singer Hanan Ben-Ari, and it goes like this. תגידי לי שהמשיח הגיע, שהעצבות נכנעה לשמחה, ואין יותר מלחמות להכריע. תגידי לי שלסרטן יש תרופה. Tell me that Mashiach has arrived, that sadness has surrendered to joy, and that there are no more wars to settle. Tell me that cancer has a cure. ותבשרי לי בשורות טובות, כמו שרק את יודעת לבשר. רק תבשרי לי בשורות טובות, אני לא יכול לשמוע חדשות יותר. And tell me good news, the way only you know how to tell. Just tell me good news. I can't listen to the news anymore. בשורות טובות, good news. So here are some good news that were reported over the past couple of months. You may have missed them, so here they are. The World Health Organization says the global child mortality rate has dropped by 60% over the past 3 decades. Countries in Southeast Asia have made substantial progress towards eliminating measles, saving an estimated 9.3 million lives in the last 20 years. And I see Robert Bank here, and he works for president of American Jewish World Service, and I see some of people around him who are working on some of these things that we don't hear about. Good news. A malaria vaccine with world-changing potential has been developed by Oxford. Scientists at Oxford. It might mean children dying from malaria could end within our lifetimes. In its 75 years since independence, India has made astounding progress in public health care, eradicating both polio and smallpox, decreasing HIV and malaria, and significantly reducing infant mortality rate. Healthcare efforts have more than doubled average life expectancy from 32 years in 1947 at the time of independence to 70 years in 2022. In the past 7 years, India's digital revolution has increased the number of people connected to the internet from 19% to 60% in 7 years. From 19% to 60% of its 1.3 billion people. Indonesia, with 274 million people, the 4th largest country in the world, has reduced the share of people living below the national poverty line in the last 20 years from 20% to 10%, lifting around 25 million people out of poverty. Several countries have recently decriminalized homosexuality and have taken a big step forward toward LGBT plus Q plus rights. This you may know, maybe not. The tides of public opinion are shifting in America, with 66% of voters now supporting a woman's right to choose, up from 55% in March. Approval of interracial marriage continues to climb too. According to Gallup, it reached a new high of 94% of people who approve interracial marriage, up from only 4% when the poll was first taken in 1958. Teenage pregnancies are declining across the world. The decline is contributed to a positive change in girls' education and infant and maternal mortality rates. This one concerns all of us. New York's waterways are the cleanest they've been in over a century, and wildlife is coming back. And finally, the Inflation Reduction Act contains the largest single round of funding for conservation in the history of the United States. Water conservation, drought resilience, conservation of forest ecosystems, wetland conservation and restoration, wildlife restoration, coastal protection and restoration. This is not the news we're used to hearing. We hardly hear this positive, hopeful news because we are so deeply, deeply immersed in bad news. The news makes us irritated and angry. We feel anxious and deflated. Not that long ago, there was optimism in the air. Remember? We really believed that the arc of the world bends toward justice. We thought that liberal democracy would eventually spread throughout the world and that freedoms and rights would expand everywhere. That the Arab Spring would bring about the blossom of democracy and peace. That a benevolent capitalism would close the inequality gap and benefit all, not just some, and create a sustainable future for human society and for our planet. Now we feel despondent and dejected as our expectations collapse and our world deteriorates before our eyes. We see our democracy threatened, the regression of rights, the advance of illiberal democracy and ultranationalism. See what happened in Italy. And authoritarianism. We see climate change, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and this cruel, horrific war that has the entire world on edge. And those of us who thought that the Israeli-Palestinian peace was within reach, when we witnessed the historic handshake on the White House lawn in September of '93, now see that the 55-year occupation becomes ever more entrenched, with no sign whatsoever of change anytime soon. And we see the ultra-nationalist, racist, Kahanist party just one step away from being part of the next Israeli government. Shameful stains on the moral character of Israel and the Jewish people. I think I speak for all of us. We're holding so much. We feel overwhelmed. We have a diminished sense of agency. We feel powerless in our ability to shape the future. And we are living with a heavy sense of uncertainty and foreboding. We really, really don't know what will become of us, where humanity will end up. We feel quite lost. We ask with the psalmist, Me'ayin yavo ezri? Where will our help come from? What will it take for the world to change its course? Some 2,500 years ago in Jerusalem, a king known as Kohelet, or Ecclesiastes, was a wise king. He declared, Hevel havalim hakol havel. All is futile, utter futility. He said, Dor holech vedor ba, ve'aretz leolam omadet. One generation goes, another comes, but the earth remains the same forever. Ma shehaya u'sheyeh, u'ma shena'asa u'sheyaseh, ve'en kol chadash tachat hashamesh. What has happened will happen again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Now listen to Kohelet's profound realism. He says, here is a frustration that occurs in the world. Sometimes the righteous get what the wicked deserve, and the wicked get what the righteous deserves. This too, I say, is meaningless. So I commend, he says, the enjoyment of life, because there's nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and enjoy. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of the life that God has given them under the sun. Nothing seems to make sense, and nothing will ever change, says Kohelet. So let us throw our hands up, and since there's nothing we can do to make things better, he suggests, let us indulge ourselves, let us eat and drink and be merry. For those of us who can afford it, and while we're able to, why miss out on life's enjoyment? Let's indulge ourselves while we watch the world go to hell. That's Kohelet's suggestion. Of course, not everybody followed Kohelet's advice in difficult times. The Talmud tells us that when the second temple was destroyed by the Romans, some people sunk into deep mourning and despair, and they would refuse to eat meat or drink wine. The great Rabbi Yeshua joined them. He sat with them and he asked them, why do you not eat meat? They said to him, how can we eat meat? Every day the daily sacrifice used to be offered upon the temple's altar, and now it is no longer. He said to them, why do you not drink wine? They said to him, how can we drink wine? Every day wine was poured out for libation on the temple's altar, and now it is no longer. He said to them, in that case, let us not even eat figs and grapes, for they used to bring offerings of first fruits from them on Shavuot. Let us not eat bread, for they used to offer the 2 loaves of bread and the showbread from them in the temple. Let us not drink water, for they used to offer libations of water on Sukkot. They were silent. He said to them, my sons, not to mourn at all is impossible, but to mourn excessively is also impossible. In the face of catastrophe, despair and mourning are, of course, natural responses. But Rabbi Yeshua pushes back against excessive despair and mourning. Rabbi Yeshua's approach is nuanced. It's not all or nothing. He tells the people it is legitimate to mourn and to feel despair, but there's a limit. You must not allow yourselves to descend into total despair. You may descend in your anguish, but you can't sink. You can't drown in your despair. You have to come back up. Maimonides has a different approach. In a difficult situation, neither indulgence nor despair, but rather consider carefully your very next step. The very next thing you do can either save or destroy the world. Maimonides said, one should see the world and see oneself as a scale equally balanced between good and evil. One good deed and one tips oneself and the entire world to the good. And the world is saved. One evil deed, and the scale is tipped towards evil, and the entire world is destroyed. So in the face of uncertainty and adversity, we must not default to self-indulgence or to despair, says the Rambam. Maimonides' way is to live with a permanent awareness of the awesome responsibility we each have in every single deed. Every single deed can build or destroy. And at every moment, we must make a deliberate choice for our sake and for the world's sake. More than 40 years ago, I heard Elie Wiesel tell the following story. An emperor sent for an old sage and told him, I have heard much about you. I am told you're a great scholar, an expert in many fields, a teacher of many students. I am also told that you're endowed with secret powers that enable you to read other people's minds. Now I'll give you a chance to prove it. I have a bird in my hands behind my back. Tell me if the bird is alive or not. Of course, if the old sage said the bird is dead, the emperor would open his hands and let it fly. If the old sage said that the bird is alive, the emperor would crush it and kill it. The old sage kept silent for a long moment. Then he turned to the emperor looked him straight in the eyes. He smiled and said, "Majesty, the answer is in your hands." So yes, there are both great and hopeful things going on in the world. Besorot tovot, lots of good things, together with terrible and destructive things. And every deed matters and makes a difference. The answer certainly is in our hands. You never know the impact of one word, of one deed that is launched into the world and into the future. What it may unleash and how it may affect the course of reality, your own reality and the reality around you, for good or for bad. We know this in our personal lives. One word, one deed, one gift, one insult, how it may change the course of relationships, the course of reality around us. And we know examples of a few words or sentences, an official declaration, a court decision, or one bullet that have changed the entire course of history. You never know how your next deed will impact the course of events. But who has time to wait around and wait to see how things will unfold? Your next deed may not come to fruition for a while. And we humans are hardwired to focus on the short term. We don't have time to wait around. We get impatient. We want immediate gratification. We want the impact now. We want results now. We want change now. The Talmud tells us about a rabbinic scholar named Roly. One day while Roly was walking along the road, he saw a man planting a carob tree. An old man. Roly said to him, "This tree, after how many years will it bear fruit?" The old man said to him, "It will not produce fruit for another 70 years. Roly said to him, "Is it obvious to you that you will live 70 years to eat from it?" He said to him, "I am not planting for myself. I found a world with carob trees. As my ancestors planted for me, I plant for my children." Roly sat and ate bread. A deep sleep fell on him. A cave surrounded him and hid him from view. Roly slept for 70 years. When he got up, he saw a man gathering carob fruits from the tree. Roly said to him, "Are you the one who planted this tree?" The man said to him, "No, I'm his grandson." Roly said to him, "I understand from this that I have slept for 70 years. He saw that his donkey has given birth to many young. He went home. He said to the people in his home, "Is the son of Roly home?" They said to him, "No, his son is not here, but his grandson is." He said to them, "I am Roly." They did not believe him. No one in his town believed him. He asked to die, and he died in despair. Roly was a well-known Talmudic master in his day, but he's a tragic character. The hero of the story is the old man. We don't know his name because this anonymous old man is every person who places seeds in the earth for future generations. He's every person who the Rolys of this world mock for not living selfishly in the here and now. Why even bother with the future if you will not benefit from the fruit of your efforts, says Roly. The old man, by the way, has no idea whether the seed will actually grow into a tree and survive. He plants. There are plagues, there are storms, there are droughts. He has no certainties, this old man, no guarantees whatsoever, but he has faith and a firm commitment to the long term. He has gratitude for what those who came before him left in the world, for him and his contemporaries. And he wants to do the same for his descendants. Roly doesn't understand any of that. He lives for the here and now. He doesn't care about his descendants, and in the end, his descendants don't even know who he is. These are complicated and troubled times indeed. Many of us took for granted our sense of safety and protection. We have work, we make a living, we have a beautiful community, we have health care, we enjoy material blessings, we live in a democracy, and there has been peace in the land. Yes, there have been lots of problems in the world, but those problems have been mostly elsewhere, far away from here. And then came the Trump years, and COVID, and the stolen election lies, and January 6th, and the ever more visible effects of climate change, and Roe's reversal, and Ukraine, and we got a wake-up call. All of a sudden, we don't feel as safe, as protected, as confident as we once did. So some turn to self-indulgence. Let's eat and drink and be merry. And others sink into deep despair. There's nothing we can do. Some wait for rescue to come from somewhere else, for Mashiach to come and end all our problems. And some want to escape and find a cave and go to sleep like Roly. Unfortunately, I think we all know this. We can't wish uncertainty away. There's no cure for it. There is no avoiding it. We are forced to live with it. We can't push it away. We live with uncertainty. There's nothing we can do. We have to live with it, and that's our great spiritual challenge. To live with no guarantees, to tolerate risk, to keep exercising resilience. We've learned a little bit about this during COVID. We have to exercise even more resilience, to remain committed to a better future. It's not just to live with uncertainty. It's to live with uncertainty and remain committed to a better future. To be more deliberate than ever about planting seeds. That's the answer to the uncertainty. We have no guarantees that the seeds will grow. As I said before, in the story of Roly, there are droughts, there are plagues, there are storms. We don't know. But we have to take a chance. We have to go for faith in the midst of the uncertainty. All the Besorot Tovot, all the good news I shared in the beginning, going on in the world, were long, long years in the making. Those who planted the first seeds most likely did not live to see the fruits of their vision and their efforts in all those good things that are going on in the world. Think about the great movements that brought us civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, and so much more. We know the big names, but most of the seeds were planted by a multitude of people who go unnamed. People who were able to tolerate an imperfect present for the sake of a better future. Who bet on a better future without guarantees. People who were able to tolerate an imperfect presence for the sake of a better future with no guarantees. A multitude of people who took the risk because they had the vision, the faith, the courage, the resilience, the selflessness to act in the here or now for the sake of the long term. So I pray that God may bless each of us in these difficult times with great fortitude and resilience in this year that begins, with the vision and the wisdom to identify the seeds that may bring about a better future, and with the faith and the courage to plant them now.